We are so lucky to have our distinguished guest, Stephen Smith-Contreras, here with us from Youth on Record. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, man. Thanks for being here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am born and raised in Denver. Actually went to East High School and grew up in Park Hill. I would call myself, I'm an artist, a musician, an educator, a father, just all around creative. I have worked in Denver Public Schools for some time after school, after college and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And at one point it was time to just find a bigger space, bigger ceiling. So moved to Los Angeles in 2008 and went to grad school out there for music. Spent about 15 years there. Working as a gigging musician, as well as just learning more about arts and arts administration, and eventually started working at the Los Angeles Philharmonic, which has a big youth program called YOLA. I work in 5 different neighborhoods throughout LA and teach classical music to young people starting at age 7. And so I spent quite some time there. Fast forward, pandemic hit, and it was time to come home, with 3 kids.
Yeah.
I have 2 middle schoolers now and a 4-year-old. Shout out to my kids. 2 sets of grandparents here in Denver. It was definitely time to come home. And so continued a lot of the connections in LA while also coming back home. And about a year after being back, I joined Youth on Record, which we'll talk a bit more about. So here I both work at Youth on Record, manage the programs there. I'm also a musician, play out from time to time, produce events as well. And so one of the projects that I've been working on this outside of Youth on Record is called Siembra, which is a collaboration with myself and Select to See. Shout out Select to See. We put on a monthly event. It's like an Afro-Latin tropical dance party.
Nice.
We were doing things at Ophelia's last year. Currently we have a residency at Invisible City, and we're actually at 2 Moons, a new venue here in Rhino, 5 Points Rhino, tonight. So
that's
staying pretty
exciting.
active. Yeah, staying pretty active.
You know how busy. Okay, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And y'all call it Siembra, but it should be called Fuego because those parties are fire.
Oh, you been there? Okay. I got to go check that out.
Big fun, yeah. So obviously music has played a huge role in your life. You're a musician. What kind of music?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start. I played clarinet in elementary school. My 4th grade teacher did not excite me on the instrument, and so that shifted. Got into guitar at one point, was into, making a lot of noise in the basement at my parents' house. And then really got into drums and more into Afro-Latin music, and really started studying like salsa and merengue and all the music of the Caribbean and West Africa, all the music of Brazil as well. And started to take it very serious. I have an uncle who's actually in France. He's a percussionist, and he was, I was fortunate that he sent me to Cuba. And
nice.
I was probably 18 and went to Cuba for 3 weeks to study percussion and matanzas. And so that's the heart of Afro-Cuban music, culture, religion, spirituality, a lot of history in matanzas. And I ended up going back three times and studying with elder master drummer. He's passed now, Daniel Alfonso, who study a lot of rumba and bata drumming and
that's awesome.
And all the different styles. So that's the core right there. And then obviously in LA I was playing a little bit more in like the salsa Latin jazz scene. And then currently we've been blending it more with electronic music, Afro house and all the Afro beats and everything that's hot right now. And it's the heartbeat, right? And so percussionist.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening with like Latin and Afrobeat music and electronica. And so as you're sort of building out these monthly events that you talk about, have you run into, what is the scene like in Denver?
Yeah, the scene is growing this is a global scene at this point, right? You go to Spain, go to East Coast, West Coast, go to Mexico City, obviously Brazil, West Africa, South Africa, right? There's a global scene at this point in terms of Afro beats and reggaeton and all the Afro-Latin kind of blends of this. There's a huge lane here in Denver to keep pushing this, right? To keep building, but it's getting bigger and bigger. There's national and probably like world DJs coming to Denver now that are spinning this. I know Black Coffee's been here quite a bit, and he's definitely one of the pioneers in the Afro House movement. And then we've been actually trying to bring more artists in as well through our platform. So last summer we brought Los Racas. They're out of the Bay Area. They're from Panama. They do like the Panamanian dance hall. Which was, the event was all right. It's summertime, so there's so much going on. Right. But it was really cool to see that element here in Denver that you don't see all the time, right? And so we're looking at some things this summer, curating some ideas or events, and just really thinking about what's next, who to bring, and keeping an eye out on who's on tour and what might be a good fit for Denver. So.
I love that, and the music community is so rich out here in Denver for sure. And now let's piggyback a little bit with Youth on Record. That's who you're with. What's your title there?
So I'm the director of programs. I've been at Youth on Record for just about a year and a half now. I came in as the director of academic success, which essentially I was managing our school partnerships. So we're at 5 schools in Denver Public Schools and Aurora Public Schools. We actually send teaching artists that teach music. They teach music production. I like an ethnic studies class called Identity, Power, and Music. And we've been getting more and more back into instrumental music, which especially for the middle school age students, like getting them off the screen, getting them off the computer, putting a guitar, putting drumsticks in their hands has been super effective.
So you have an extensive music background. You just gave us a great tour of like your background and what you've kind of, been able to experience. So working with Youth on Record and these young kids that have this creative, mind and they want to exercise their creativity. Did you start at a young age and talk about the importance of it, like at a young age, being exposed to the arts? I think that's one of the most important things as a parent or as you can expose the kids to the arts. In all form of fashion. I'm a music guy, but whatever, if it's music, whatever it may be, but the arts in general. So talk about the importance of that, like exposing the youth to this creative world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you think, we'll talk a little bit more about the Underground Music Showcase and Impact Days, which is a conference, a music conference that's going to be produced in July. But I've been actually really thinking a lot about like the traditional kind of traditional music upbringing, and then this crossroads that we're in with technology and
AI and everything.
And just this kind of idea of like, I want to do this now, so I'm going to do it now, right? Obviously, is when you think about music and like, folks that have mastered their craft, when you're thinking about a guitar player, drummer, pianist, right? The earlier you can start, the better, right? It's also, like I said, I have 3 kids. My boys are in middle school. They've been in piano lessons for quite some time. They don't actively practice, right? And it's this kind of push and pull around like, of
course.
Can we work a little bit on it? And it's just a consistency thing, right? They're not going to be concert pianists, but having that background, if they choose to get more into music,
they'll be exposed. They were exposed.
Yeah, and they have that, right? But I think it's truly, if you're passionate about it and you're dedicated to it, it doesn't matter what age you start, right? Obviously, the younger, the better, and I think it's huge in terms of when we think about like creative youth development and what music can do in terms of like consistency and community building and mastering a craft, right? That's a huge part of what it can be, right? And so the younger you start, and also the more consistent you can be, the better. But it's a push and pull, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and so I'm curious. The Youth on Record, it talks about creating addressing systemic injustice and talking about creating equitable communities. How do you think music or the arts in general can speak to those things?
Yeah. Well, so for one, music is a tool that allows young people to build community. It also allows people to explore their identity and also explore their creativity, right? So when someone can really focus on that and think about and dive into some of these areas, as well as have a mentor. And so we bring in professional musicians that are active in the community as mentors that coach our students either at the studio here in Lalma Park, which is just southwest of downtown, or out at the schools, right? But really having that, being able to connect with that, and as a young person explore those different spaces, right? Diving into identity, creativity, as well as community building, and also just, it's like music is everywhere, right? Everywhere, and young people. My boys know every song on every radio, like every song, right? I'm like,
all types of genres and everything.
Yeah, but for sure, the hip hop and urban music, like they know every song, and it's like, so there's an opportunity right there also to start diving into some of the conversations around like what are the lyrics saying, how is someone talking about themselves, how are they promoting themselves, what are we thinking about in terms of positive youth and growth and whatnot too there. So.
Anybody out there listening right now, Stephen, I want you to explain again. I want to touch on something you mentioned a while ago, but for anyone who's just tuning in, who's saying, what is Youth on Record? What do you do? What's the program like? Explain it to the people.
Absolutely, yes. So Youth on Record is a nonprofit here based in Denver. It's about 15 years old. We have a studio in the Lalma Park community, so we're right off of 10th and Navajo. It's literally a block from the 10th and Osage light rail station. And so we have a number of programs. We start from ages 12 to 24.
Nice.
And so we work with young people in middle school all the way to young adults. We have a number of programs. So we have a drop-in program called Open Lab. It's 3 days a week. Ages 14 to 20, you can come in, learn how to play guitar. You can work on your piano skills, but we have an Ableton music production space there, so we teach Ableton there. We also teach Soundtrap, which is in a lot of the schools. But we have a full-on recording studio there, so young people come in, book studio time with our engineers, and are able to really advance their craft. So now there are young folks that have come through and now have their music up on platforms, and they're out there performing. We have a youth booking arm. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have a podcast that takes place out of our studio there. We have a podcast internship. We have a monthly open house, which is actually today, third Thursday of the month. We try and bring in a guest artist to do like a masterclass workshop.
I love it.
It's from 5 to 6. We have Homeboy Sandman, who is a New York, I think he's from Queens, kind of old school lyricist, MC lyricist. So he's going to he's going to teach a workshop around wordsmithing and lyricism today, 5 p.m. What else do we have? We have a fellowship for young artists ages 18 to 24. It's an 11-month program. There's a stipend involved, so they're paid to be part of this program. Kaylin Heffernan of Wheelchair Sports Camp, shout out Kaylin, is our lead faculty for the fellowship. And then we have a number of other programs that take place there. When we work with young folks, and we're a very community-based program, we're using music as a tool to build community,
I love that.
To explore identity, to explore culture. But we also know that, young people, especially post-pandemic, the mental health and wellness has been a big key piece too, right? We're currently hiring a mental health and wellness manager that's going to help us continue to expand our portfolio around what we're offering, both in schools and at our space. So really using the arts as a tool to build, to develop, to both community, but also self, right, and better understand identity, but also offering other tools, since we've got a lot of the relationships built with young folks that may be needing, additional supports, whether it's from like a mental holistic health space or just mentorship with an adult, a trusting adult that can help them with their creative journey or whatnot. So we're up to a lot of things.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the website, and I really love what it says. It says that Youth on Record's programs are designed to help young people become more free, rooted in their personal power, and better able to thrive in spite of systems and circumstances that disempower them. And I wonder, does your location, being in the West Side, being in Lalma Lincoln Park, which has a lot of history there around those kind of things, how does that impact your mission?
Absolutely. I mean, so we work with urban youth, right? We work with a lot of young folks that have the agency to show up on their own. and they're passionate about this, right? And so they're also, they're super creative. The talent is, I mean, this next generation, I'm so inspired constantly, right? But they also are facing what a lot of young folks in urban U.S. face, right? There's a lot of challenges with the cost of living and what am I doing, in terms of education, and how am I going to pay rent, and what's my next chapter in terms of my next phase in whether it's academic or professional growth or creative, right? So, I would say we're a community hub. We have a tight community of young folks, but it's very open and inviting. So we have an open mic the first Friday of every month. It aligns with the first Friday on Santa Fe in the Arts District. Nice. And we have a lot of young folks that come in and perform. And so there's definitely, it's a safe, but it's also a brave space, right? And so
brave,
we really, we really live by those values and really work on making sure that the community is tight and it's safe and also inspiring, right? So, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
And some of my favorite artists, like you guys, have such an impact that you can see it in people's lives even well beyond their time with you. Some of my favorite artists in Denver have come through or are connected with Youth on Record, and it's just so cool to see, like, your impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being from Denver, I know a lot of the OGs that were teaching artists at Youth on Record. Shout out Molina, ETEF. I know Susie Q. Smith was involved. And now this next generation is huge. One thing that we're really trying to push is creative apprenticeships, right? So what's next? Obviously, every young person that comes through Youth on Record, like, we're not trying to necessarily support the next, we're not trying to build the next hit maker or producer or whatnot. Like, if that happens, great. Sure. But it's more so like building this strong, safe community, helping young folks grow holistically, right? But in terms of those that do want to continue this, like, this apprenticeship piece is key. So we were actually in D.C. last week meeting with a couple of our Congress folks, right? So Hickenlooper and Bennett, we met with some of their staffers around, what are the creative apprenticeships in Denver for this 18 to 24-year-old space for young folks that really want to get into, radio, podcasting, music, video. And how do we keep opening more and more opportunities? How does, from like the federal government side of things, how can they support by pumping more money into this economy? Yeah. As we know, the creative economy here in Denver and in Colorado it's the fourth biggest in terms of economies, and we want to keep this. We want to keep pushing forward. We want to think about what do these jobs look like in 2024, 2025 for young folks. How do we keep some of these creative jobs, or we keep bringing creative jobs here to Colorado and to Denver specifically? And how do we use Youth on Record and organizations like us to really plug young people from the community into these jobs? So that's really that's where my passion lies. That's where it's at. So
you can tell that comes through. Stephen Smith-Contreras is here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in, Youth on Record, we got a text at 303-893-3767. I've been looking for something like this, and the emoji face is like wow, like, oh my God.
No, it's crying.
Oh, is it crying?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like of happiness.
Oh, I can't tell. Okay, so either way, they're excited about it. So for the parents out there, if someone's listening like this, you provide a safe space for these kids to be creative. So talk to the parents real quick about what's the procedure like to get them involved and how that works, because some of our youth they just want to be able to sing or write a song or be creative or learn something different that they have this thing about when it comes to the arts.
Yeah, so we're on all social platforms at Youth on Record. We're also on the web at youthonrecord.com. You can find all of our programs there. We have our open door program is Open Lab. It takes place Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 3:30 to 6:30, and the young person just needs to show up. They can register. They can pre-register, or they can come in and register there. Our Open program manager of that program, his name is Jesus. Shout out Jesus. He is awesome. Like, connects with the young person on their first time coming in. Really make sure that they feel comfortable in the space. Get a little tour of the space. So, and in the Open Lab program, like I mentioned earlier, we're teaching Ableton. We've got 20 djembes in the space. It's a big. So our space. Let me just take one step back. We have our youth media studio has a classroom that's about big enough for like 40 young folks.
Nice.
We teach classes there. We actually have a partnership with Colorado High School Charter where we teach music production in the space. We have a Mac lab there as well. And then in the back, we have a tracking room and a recording room.
Wow.
So we can bring a whole band in. We have bands that come in and rehearse in the
amazing.
space. So yeah, that's the entryway in is just showing up to Open Lab. You can pre-register on the website, and then on any of those days, come in and Jesus or Baba Fly, shout out Baba, they're there, and we also have our YCE we call it the Young Creative Ecosystem. We have interns that are also working, that are also young musicians, super creative, super talented, that are also there to work with the young folks as they come into the space.
So cool.
It is. And you have some kind of big events coming up this summer.
Yeah, so couple. So we have a block party. It's June 8th. I know, it's the same day as the Drops
same
block.
day, but you can do both.
But check this out. Yeah, ours is from 1 to 7, and I already have my tickets to go
You already
see
see? You already
I'm
be there.
going to be at the Drop block party, but you can come earlier. It's awesome. We have we have performers all day. We have a curated stage. Super talented.
That's awesome.
Community booths, food trucks, and it's right there at the intersection of 10th and Navajo. So the block is closed off and whatnot. Actually, last summer it was the same day that the Lalma Park swimming pool opened up. So It's a whole community thing in terms of just the energy and all what's going on. And then we also have the Underground Music Showcase. So Youth on Record, just to give a couple connection points there, is a co-owner of the Underground Music Showcase. And this is the longest running community music festival in Denver. It's the last weekend of July. And so you can check that out. It's UMS or undergroundmusicshowcase.com.
Okay.
But we produce an event called Impact Days, which is a music conference that takes place 2 of the days. It really explores what do musicians need to know now, what can they learn from the past, and we explore like what's next, right? We dive into all these topics and really keep in mind this like young creative lens within it, right? So what's up with streaming? What's up with AI? Where's this all
A
going?
lot of layers there.
Yeah, so many layers. So I'm just putting that out there. It would be great to see how La Mole and Sugar Bear can be involved with the Impact Days, and we'll offline on that one.
I mean, yeah, let's do that.
That would be great.
I want to be involved. Anything with the arts. This is an amazing program, what you guys are doing. I think, again, being exposed to the arts, especially at a young age. Someone else just texted in, me too. As I said earlier, someone said, I've been looking for something like this. Someone said, me too. So I'm going to text you back the information. Give it to them one more time, the website.
Yep, youthonrecord.com, and we're on Instagram at youthonrecord, all the platforms, and definitely you can find all of our programs there, specifically on the website. And if you're around today from 3:30 to 5:30, we have our open house. We have Homeboy Sandman out of Queens, New York, coming at 5 today, teaching a lyricism, wordsmith workshop. And just keep us on your radar, because these events are happening every month, third Thursday of the month. And then, like I mentioned, we have so many different programs that are taking place as well. So you can find all our info there, youthonrecord.com.
It's wonderful. Salute to you and everyone, all your staff there. This is a
Appreciate
passion
that.
project. You can feel that.
Yep.
So continue doing what you're doing. Thanks for representing this community.
Yeah, and one other thing, I know that someone was curious about the Afro-Latin events. You can check us out at Siembra Sound System on Instagram, and that's where we're pushing all of our events. And we have one tonight at 2 Moons, and then we have a monthly that's happening at Invisible City over in the Arts District as well.
Nice. Thank you for your time today, man. It means a lot.
Appreciate
you.
you both.